Good morning, everybody, or good whatever time it is, wherever you are. Today I want to talk about the 180-degree rule as it applies to comics, or maybe as it doesn't apply to comics. We could call it the 180-degree suggestion. I'm primarily an animator and storyboard artist, and I've noticed I love comic books, and I've noticed how the rules are different for comics. So let me define the 180-degree rule here. It's essentially when you have, simplest version is when you have maybe a two-shot, a couple of characters talking to each other, and as they face each other, the line of eyesight defines the 180 degrees. That's what you don't want to cross. So if you have your camera over one shoulder, you want the other camera over the other guy's shoulder on the same side of that 180-degree line of eyesight. So we can demonstrate what this looks like real quickly here. This camera sees this frame. You'll have your green fella or lady on that side looking 3/4 off that direction. Then you have your guy. You maybe have the other character in the frame, maybe not. And then you switch and you have your green person closer and your blue person further back. The important thing that you can see here is that as you switch cameras, as you switch shots, your characters are on the same side. Now if you break that 180-degree line and put your camera on the other side of the character, you'll see something like this, where you get the character down here and then this guy is up and close. Now, I can do a better job here of illustrating why this is a problem if we fill our frame with these images. So we'll take this first camera that was on the right over the shoulder of the blue guy, then we'll take this image and we'll blow them up. So this is what you want. This is proper framing. We can use this up here to demonstrate our situation. It's a little diagram of what we're looking at here. So as we switch from one camera to the other, there we go. This is what we see, and this makes perfect sense for the viewer. Now if we switch the camera to that side, let me just make sure these are the same size here. A little bigger brush. What we see, I did a sketch of this before. I'll reproduce it here. Now, as we switch back and forth between these cameras breaking the 180-degree plane, it looks like our characters are switching sides. This is very confusing. So that's what the 180-degree rule is, and that's what you need to pay a lot of attention to it in your filmmaking and your storyboarding for film. Now, I have noticed that comic books break this rule all the time, and sometimes to no ill effect. So I'd like to explore a little bit why that is. One idea I have is that on a comic book page, you have, pardon me, okay, a bunch of panels, right? And so looking from one panel to the other, it's not as dramatic as having the whole field of vision change. Our brains can take in those panels next to each other a lot easier than having our whole field of vision change in a blink. My other idea is that oftentimes what's more important than character position is balloon order, right? Word balloon order in text. So this guy comes in, he says hi. This guy says come on in. And then in our next panel, if they're still talking, you might be able to keep your same setup, but if the green person's talking first, oftentimes you get these really weird situations where you have to thread balloons all over. So it can make sense to just have them switch sides. And it creates kind of this mirror image or bookend look, which isn't a problem in a comic book page, the way it would be if we jumped from one scene to the other. So we can put a couple of variations here. On the top we have our what you would call mirror image, and here on the bottom we'd have something a little more cinematic, and you get different effects from these. The bottom one, it feels a little more repetitious. So let's use an example of one of my own comic book pages of where I broke the 180 degree rule, and I think it worked out just fine. This was a really sort of complicated page for me. It's a single page gag. There's a lot of dialogue, but I didn't want to bury the characters in word balloons. I needed a certain dynamic between the characters. I needed to get the gag across. And so you can see here, I established an initial eye line, 180 degrees. And then in this second panel, I'm going to argue that I didn't break it, but what I did was I went right to the edge. So we have Ruby lying down here and Blue Rick on that side. So I went all the way to 180 degrees, but I didn't go beyond 180 degrees. I think that's probably fair, and interesting things happen when you do that, and that's could maybe be part of a different discussion. But this is my argument for having presumably maintained my line of action all the way through here, down to this one, we still got the same 180 degree. And then here's where I switched it. And it had, I think, mostly to do with balloon order in this case. You have this issue with comic books where you're reading top to bottom and left to right at the same time. So when you put your balloons that way, it's a little hard to tell which one you're supposed to read first. Nothing's more frustrating to me than getting confused about which balloon I should read when well, there are other things more frustrating, but you can see I've gone straight down the page, both down and left to right at the same time. And once I switched that 180 degrees, I maintained it for the rest of the page. So that's all I really wanted to talk about. I hope you enjoyed this little discussion. I love comics and movies and cartoons, and I love trying to understand why they are the way they are. Thank you for listening. It would mean the world to me if you'd subscribe to my channel. Please leave comments and share it with everybody you know. Thank you very much.